Hello to everybody. This training course, called Health System and Environmental Health, is composed by 3 different modules who treated the following topics. The Module 1, developed by Domenico Vito, is entitled Implement Sustainable Development Goals in Health Sector, Opportunities and Case Studies under One Health Approach, and consists of 3 lessons. Lesson 1.1, Setting the Scene, Knowing SDGs. Lesson 1.2, One Health and the SDGs. Lesson 1.3, Case Studies and Application. The Module 2, developed by Dr. Paolo Loriola, is entitled Environmental Health Prevention, Some Principles and Perspectives, and consists of 3 lessons. Lesson 1.1, Intro, Environmental Health Risks. Lesson 1.2, Some Concept and Principles. Lesson 1.3, In Practice. The Module 3, developed by Dr. Emilio Benfinati, is entitled The Way Forward Safer Pharmaceuticals, the Hospital Wastes, Their Impact and Management, and consists of 2 lessons. Lesson 1.1, Contaminants Impacting Our Life. Lesson 1.2, For the Future, Anticipate the Problem, Safer and Greener Pharmaceuticals. Module 1 implements Sustainable Development Goals in Health Sector, Opportunities and Case Studies under One Health Approach. I'm Domenico Vito, and as mentioned before, this lecture will be about implementing sustainable development goals in the health sector. A few words about the structure of the lecture. In the first module, we will talk about setting the scene, knowing what the SDGs are. In the second module, we will talk about the concept of One Health and the relationship with SDGs. And the third module will talk about case studies and application. A few words about myself. I am Domenico Vito. I'm a PhD bioengineer, graduated from Politecnico di Milano. Actually, I'm a researcher at the Metabolism of Cities Living Lab of the San Diego State University. And my main areas of interest are climate change, marine litter, and the use of data, particularly to address the relationship between health and environment inside the One Health framework. I've also been an observer at the NFC Conference of Parties and other international processes properly dealing with the relationship between environment and health. And also a member of the Health Working Group at the UNCCC organized by the Global Climate Health Alliance. Lesson 1.1. Setting the Scene, Knowing SDGs. Let's go then to the first module about setting the scene and knowing better what the SDGs are. So basically, SDGs are the Sustainable Development Goals. So they're a set of goals of possible achievement that has been created by the United Nations to foster sustainable development. Talking about sustainable development, the first definition of sustainable development was done in 1987 by the Brundtland Commission. In the report that was also called Our Common Future, sustainable development was defined as the development that would satisfy the needs of the present generation without compromising the ability of the future generation to satisfy their own future. Basically, sustainable development was created to contrast the several economic models that were not seeing a limit in the exploitation of natural resources. And for this, they were classified as unsustainable. So basically, sustainable development is defining a type of development that is considering the respectful use of the planetary resources in a way that, for example, these resources can be renewed and also used with a certain rate that is not like exhaust them. Properly talking about sustainable resources before talking about SDGs is important to mention another model that in 2009 was created by Johan Rockström. It is the model of planetary boundaries. The planetary boundaries are a conceptual framework that defines 9 areas of planetary limits in which we have to consider the impact of the action of human activities. So, inside these 9 areas, every action has a certain degree of impact, and towards a certain threshold, this impact can be defined as sustainable or even dangerous and threatening for the ecosystem itself. The planetary boundaries concept presents a set of 9 planetary boundaries within which humanity can continue to develop and thrive for generations to come. In 2009, former Center Director Johan Rockström led a group of 28 internationally renowned scientists to identify the 9 processes that regulate the stability and resilience of the Earth system. The scientists proposed quantitative planetary boundaries within which humanity can continue to develop and thrive for generations to come. Crossing these boundaries increases the risk of generating large-scale abrupt or irreversible environmental changes. The Millennium Development Goals, MDGs, were 8 international development goals for the year 2015 that had been established following the Millennium Summit of the United Nations in 2000, following the adoption of the United Nations Millennium Declaration. 2015 was the year of change. 2015 was a landmark year for multilateralism and international policy shaping, with the adoption of several major agreements. Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, March 2015. Addis Ababa Action Agenda on Financing for Development, July 2015. Transforming Our World. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development with its 17 SDGs was adopted at the UN Sustainable Development Summit in New York in September 2015. Paris Agreement on Climate Change, December 2015. I show you again the Sustainable Development Goals. In the picture, there is an example on how a goal has built and some of the most important implications. Currently, the framework of the SDGs is composed of 17 goals, 117 targets, and 241 indicators, and this structure is the backbone to monitor SDGs progress at the local, national, regional, and global scale. Now, the annual high-level political forum on sustainable development serves as the central UN platform for the follow-up and review of the SDGs. A sound indicator framework turns the SDGs and their targets into a management tool, and every 4 months the Union Statistical Commission updates the set. Why SDGs? It's a call to action to end poverty and inequality, protect the planet, and ensure that all people enjoy health, justice, and prosperity. It is critical that no one is left behind, and it's a multi-scale monitoring and compliance system. In such a framework, SDGs became a strong technical matter where measurement and monitoring of the impact of SDGs has a strong role. Indicators can also monitor actions, indeed investments and policies. Different levels of SDG monitoring. National, prerogative of each national government. Global, based on a set of global monitor indicators following an harmonized standard for high-level political forums. Regional, provides a platform for knowledge-sharing, peer review, and reciprocal learning across regions. Thematic comprises special indicators, can include input and process metrics useful to complement the other sets. We can consider the SDGs as part of a statistical infrastructure. To assess the real compliance of indicators and to make them reliable every 4 months, indeed the United Nations Statistical Commission updates and refines the set of SDGs indicators in collaboration with the custodian. So, thanks to the system of indicators, it is possible to measure and to also create statistics regarding the progress of the SDGs. These statistics are in a way managed and controlled by the UN National Statistical Commission that every 4 months is redefining and tailoring and fine-tuning the system of indicators or sustaining the reports that are coming from the some national level. Every SDGs is also, you can say, curated by a so-called custodian. Custodian is an agency. Most of them are UN agencies that are taking care of collecting the data and the information regarding the proper SDGs. For example, SDG 3 that is related to health as a custodian, the WHO. In the slide, you can see the different levels of SDGs monitoring: global, regional, UNC, European, and national. The idea behind the SDGs is to provide a concept of measurability of sustainability. So not just an abstract definition, but properly, I can say tangible and numeric ways to pursue this idea of sustainable development. So, in the framework of the SDGs, in fact, we can recognize different types of indicators, and some are more related to the national level, others are related to the regional and the global level, but also there are thematic indicators. So just to give some hints on how the SDGs are monitored, this is like a table that is resuming the main actor at the different levels that are, we can say, measuring and collecting the data of the SDGs, starting from the UN level, So the UN statistical unit and also the custodians at the regional level, for example, regarding the case of Europe, there is UNH that is, we can say, managing and coordinating all the, we can say, guidelines and say, information to monitor the SDGs at the member state level. So, EU is also doing annually a report regarding SDGs, but also the single nation of the EUs are like defining strategies, agendas, and also collecting the we say, the reports properly of the SDG framework at the national level. So, we can say cross-level indicators that are pertaining to particular areas of action. So, without going too much in depth into the structure of the SDGs, one just to say that the framework of SDGs is a multi-scale monitor and compliance model. Compliance because it acts at a different level. And so, we can so-called localize the SDGs at the global, at the regional, and also at, for example, at the city level. So, the idea, as I was saying before, is not only to provide an abstract definition on what sustainability is, but probably to give an instrument to tailor and to evaluate the progress towards the goals themselves. The SDGs, in a way, are defining a so-called statistical infrastructure. The slide shows the levels of achievement to be attained by 2030 for all the goals. How far are OECD countries from achieving SDG targets for women and girls? Applying a gender lens to measuring distance to SDG targets. The longer the bars, the shorter the distance to be traveled by 2030. Target levels are represented by the outer dotted circle. The inner circle, the starting point for the bars, represents a score of 3 or more standardized distances away from target, which most OECD countries have achieved on most targets. Targets are shown by goal, and goals are clustered by the 5 Ps of the 2030 Agenda. Thank you for the attention.